Hello, and welcome to Sizzle Crackle Pop, your favorite local fireside chat. Tonight, we'll be discussing the Ford administration.
Oh my gosh. Do you get it, Lois? It kind of sounds like you're talking about bacon over there, because bacon sizzles and crackles and pops.
You're so embarrassing.
Oh. Talking about tonight is how Ford is nothing like President Lincoln was.
People were concerned whether if he was going to be fit to be president.
Which is so crazy because, he played football at U of M during the championship, which makes him so popular. Just like me. That's how I got this job here.
But he was often the butt of jokes.
Yeah, I don't know how that one feels, Lois.
Ladies and gents, our second topic will be the Nixon pardon.
Will the Constitution survive? Will the government make it? Gasp! Nobody knows.
President Ford says it's time for communication, conciliation, compromise, and cooperation. The 4 C's.
So, crazy as it seems, folks out there, Ford decided to actually pardon Nixon for all his offenses during the Watergate scandal, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. That scandal was not only dirty, but it was terrible.
Nixon even walked away without a penalty.
Once again, insane, because I would have given the penalty to someone who did that. So, another thing is that Ford's gesture failed. People began judging his judgment and ability when he let Nixon walk away without a penalty, which, so would I, Lois, not gonna lie.
Many people were angry and booed at him in public speeches, which is unheard of for a president.
Boo! Ford tries to move ahead. Welcome to segment 3.
While focused on the scandal, some conditions of the United States got even worse.
New administration seemed unclear about what course to take during all these problems, like problems with the economy, job loss, inflation, etc.
Nixon didn't focus on the economy, so inflation hovered around 11% a year, and unemployment climbed to 5.3%.
And this is so crazy because I had all my money put into stocks, but there was a drop in stock prices, which I need my money.
Several home building were stalled.
There was a moderate rise in inflation, which could help control the rate of unemployment, and that's what those crazy economists believed.
Unemployment would counterbalance an increase in inflation, and the economy remained stalled and stagnant.
Which is also known as stagflation. But here's even the worst part. Our conditions in the United States, well, guess what, folks? It reached crisis levels, just like my grades in college.
He tried to restore public confidence
with the idea of whip inflation now.
He tried to control the money supply, which meant that a widespread of job layoffs were happening.
So, here's the thing, guys. His basic dilemma was that he believed in limited government at a time when strong executive leadership was needed, guys. We need a strong leader.
Ford even vetoed bills to create a consumer protection agency to fund programs for education, housing, and even healthcare.
So another thing is that Congress used their power to stop new military action in Southeast Asia and North Vietnam, which seemed like a pretty good idea to me.
Ford continued, SALT.
Otherwise known as salt. That thing you put a lot of on your french fries. So another thing is that the Helsinki Accords were signed, which was 35 nations, including the Soviet Union. They pledged to cooperate economically and to promote human rights. Y'all, that's it for this segment, and we will see you in the 4th segment, where the country celebrates its birthday. Oh, say, can you say?
Whoa, that's enough of that. Let's sing Happy Birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
dear the United States.
Happy birthday to you.
4th of July, ladies and gents. 4th of July.
1976, we celebrated the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, folks.
People had parades, speeches, fireworks, air shows, and concerts.
Large ships even sailed into the harbors. Funny story, Lois. I was actually on one of those large ships, and it was pretty fantastic.
You know, I've heard it's the optimistic revival after years of gloom.
Amen, sister. Years of gloom and sadness
are over.
Hello and welcome to Sizzle, Crackle, Pop, your favorite nightly fireside chat. And today, me and Lois are bringing you episode 2, the Carter transition. And
no more dumb jokes, please.
Oh, come on. I had a really good one, though.
Nope, not this time. Welcome back to the election of 1976.
We are live, folks. All right. So, tonight, we are here to tell you that James Earl Carter Jr. has promised to bring a fresh start to our government.
A number of personal liabilities hurt his chance for success.
Which is so sad because, Lois, don't you think he would have been a great candidate?
Yes.
He worked against racial discrimination, which is something this country needs.
As a man, he owned a very successful farm.
A peanut farm. You know, peanuts, peanuts, peanuts. Get it?
He distanced himself from the scandal by pointing out that he was not only a lawyer, but simply a peanut farmer.
Peanuts, peanuts, peanuts.
Stop.
Oh, but come on. It's so funny. A classic.
It really isn't.
Well, anyway, he began with a lead in the polls, you know, race, and winning the race. But then it began to drop as voters began to wonder whether or not he could really govern a country, a nation.
He mostly gained support from the old Democratic.
He won most of the South, but not so much the northern side. All right now, folks. Now we are going to introduce to you our second topic of the evening. The president from Plains, Georgia. We are just mainly going to be talking about his life and what he has done before politics.
So, right off the bat, he entered the Naval Academy.
But before that, he grew up in the South. So he was able to see how racial discrimination was such a big problem in our nation.
And as you already know, he did own a very successful peanut farm. Nope. Don't say it.
Oh, man. But anyway, since I can't make my joke, he was a born-again Baptist.
Read the Bible in Spanish to improve his language skills, which is very impressive to me.
I know, I can barely do it. Hola, donde está el baño? But he was very precise and very thoughtful with everything he did, each matter.
He chose 4 times as many women to be federal judges than the previous presidents combined.
Oh yeah, that's power to us. Although he was very uneasy with congressional expectations and demands. Whatever they wanted, he grew up reading the Bible, in Spanish, of course, hola, but so he placed his views with that, and so with some of their decisions and demands, he was kind of like, no. Nah, Felicia, nah.
That was a good joke.
I know, thank you.
So,
learned that one in college.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to episode 3 of Sizzle, Crackle, Pop. Let's talk about Carter's foreign policy.
First of all, we'll start off with the human rights diplomacy.
Take it away.
So, one thing that I picked up in college when I was listening was that Carter was unwilling to compromise his powerful sense of morality.
The support for human rights was the cornerstone of his foreign policy.
The next subject we are going to be talking about is a step toward Middle East peace.
So basically, problems between Arab and Israel nations existed for 30 years.
Oh, I hope I never get that old. I hope I just stay 23 forever. Anyways, after the last Arab-Israeli war, Henry Kissinger undertook shuttle diplomacy, moving region to region, trying to, arrange peace between the countries. Anwar el-Sadat made a historic visit to Israel to begin negotiations with Prime Minister Menachem Begin.
They had trouble negotiating, but Carter intervened and had Secretary of State Cyrus Vance invite them to the Camp David Accords.
But this event was much like the initiation. It was very tightly kept secret.
Welcome back to segment 3 of episode 3. Foreign policy takes a new direction.
So one of the biggest successes is that, I hope I said that right, Carter's fight to have the Senate ratify treaties returning the Panama by the year 2000. That was a huge success.
Carter made relations with the People's Republic of China.
One other thing you should know is that Americans were so excited for the open Chinese market, as can be suspected, because who wouldn't want to trade with them and get all that money?
China wanted to learn how to modernize their country from us.
Westernize, the cool stuff. Anyway, but one last thing before we move on to a different subject is relations with many nations in Africa improved because they were having some bad relationships. Hello, and welcome to our next subject, Soviet-American relations.
So, the Soviets were annoyed when the president verbally supported the dissents.
There was a new treaty signed in Vienna in June 1979. My favorite year, might I add.
SALT-2 was more complicated than SAT-1.
So the Soviet Union, this was the worst part ever because who does that to a friend, right? Anyway, or maybe they weren't friends. Who knows? Anyway, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, which was not good. Talk about trying to make peaceful relations.
Everyone said that the invasion was a clear threat to the peace, which is not a good thing.
We will see you tomorrow with our next subject.
So, welcome to segment 5 of Iran holds Americans hostage.
So, guys, I meant to tell you, my cold's gone, yay! So, anyway, the first subject we are going to be talking about is how Carter went to Iran's capital in 1977, which is, a big deal.
They basically just wanted to bring back their old ways.
The Muslims did in 1979, of course. So anyway, angry students, which is, basically everybody in my college, that extra homework assignment, please. Anyway, so these angry students seized the American embassy in Tehran and took 66 Americans hostages, which is insane. One thing that we find extremely interesting is that the hostage crisis is a national issue, which is absolutely insane.
When the president's efforts of bringing the hostages back to their freedom, his chances of re-election were doomed.
Done!
Why do you always need to do that?
Because it's so much fun.
Oh my.
They were so angry because he had broken diplomatic relations with Iran and froze Iranian assets in the United States.
Carter authorized a commando rescue mission.
Superman! Just kidding. He's not Superman, but he's pretty close, folks. So helicopters broke down in the desert and 8 American soldiers were killed, which is absolutely unacceptable. So you can really see why Americans would be upset.
So in 1981, Iranians agreed to release 52 hostages, but they could not come home until Carter left office.
Dun, dun, dun.
Again, why?
Because I'm trying to give the people at home some fun on this gloomy subject.
I guess so.
Done.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to Sizzle
Crackle.
Pop. I'm Lois.
And I'm your favorite college cheerleader, Eloise.
And tonight we are bringing you episode 4, Carter's Domestic Problems. Our first subject we'll be talking about is the economy wobbles. So, Carter tried to stimulate growth with the government deficit spending.
To stop the 10% growth of inflation, which learned about in my econ class, Carter tried to slow the economy way down. You know, where in the movies you hear that song, dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
I don't know that one.
Well, you're not in. Anyway, so he tried to slow the economy and reduce the deficit by cutting spending. Oh, what would I do without shopping?
He mostly cut social programs and
It angered the Democrats.
Yeah.
Definitely. And another thing is that bond prices fell and interest rates soared. Sorry, we're getting paid advertisement coming in.
People also lost a lot of confidence in Carter.
Yes, we would love to advertise you. I gotta go. Anyway, we will be right back, and we will bring you subject to a Carter crusade, saving energy. Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome back to a Carter crusade, saving energy. In the 1970s, more than 40% of the U.S. oil was imported.
Getting that money. Not us, you know. But anyway, Carter was the focus of people's complaints.
He asked people to save fuel by driving less and keeping offices/homes cooler.
Which would make me mad too. Anyway, he also created the Department of Energy.
The National Energy Act taxed gas-guzzling cars, requiring utilities to use coal rather than oil. He removed price controls on domestic oil and natural gas, and even allowed tax credits and research funds for alternative energy sources such as solar energy and synthetic fuels.
That's okay, Lois, we're live. Anyway, so now I'm going to break this down for you folks at home. The 3 Mile Island accident. Sorry, English was not my major, that's for sure. Anyway, so what this is a small leak through a faulty seal, which stopped the pumps that circulated the coolant. And then temperatures in the reactor core rose. Plant operators misread symptoms and shut down an emergency cooling system, which, released some radiation, and it was not good. All right, guys, the next subject we will be covering is steps toward deregulation.
Reducing or moving government control in several different industries.
Proposals included taking control of oil and natural gas prices.
Here are some other domestic issues. Carter was more sympathetic to the goal of natural lights than Ford.
Oh my gosh, yes, me too. Gotta get that perfect selfie for the gram or chat face live, Gotta get the perfect.
I meant rights.
Oh.
Natural rights.
Sorry.
Than Ford and Nixon had been. We ain't taking no selfies.
Still, gotta get it though. African Americans were disappointed by his weak sauce support of social programs and his concentration on economic problems.
After Bach was white and applied to a college and was rejected twice, calling it reverse discrimination, and he sued the school.
which those judges on the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the University of California.
It signaled a white backlash against society. Now, time to evaluate the Carter presidency.
He did all right. All right, so it is now, our time is coming to a close tonight, and this is actually, sadly, our last program for the year, and we will see you next year, but before we end, we are going to introduce to you some very important vocabulary that we would not want to leave you without.
Gerald R. Ford. He was the 30th President of the United States from 1974 to 1977. He was very successful and pardoned Nixon, but he did fail to establish a strong leadership.
Stagflation was a slow economic growth coupled with high rates of inflation and unemployment. The Helsinki Accords was an agreement reached in the 1970s by a group of nations, including the United States and the Soviet Union, to cooperate economically and promote human rights.
James Earl Carter Jr. He was the 39th President of the United States from 1977 to 1981. He advocated concern for human rights and the foreign policy. He assisted in mediating the Camp David Accords.
Shuttle diplomacy is the diplomatic negotiations conducted by an official mediator traveling frequently to the nations involved. Anwar el-Sadat was an Egyptian leader in the 1970s who began the Middle East process by reaching the 1978 Camp David Accords with Egypt.
Menachem Begin, an Israeli leader during the 1970s, which began the Middle East peace process by reaching the 1978 Camp David Accords with Egypt.
I don't know about you, Lois, but there sure are a lot of things about the Camp David Accords, am I right?
Yep, you are.
So another one we have is Cyrus Vance, who is the Secretary of State under President Jimmy Carter, who invited the Israelis and Egyptians to come to Camp David in 1978 to begin Middle East peace process.
So you're probably wondering what the Camp David Accords even is. It's a place where the Egypt and Israelis gathered to promote peace.
Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Wow, I actually said something right. Anyway, he was the leader of Iran from 1941 until his overthrow in 1979. He was supported by the United States, brought modernization to his country along with representation and corruption. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was an Islamic fundamentalist leader of Iran after the 1979 overthrow of the Shah. He was approved holding of the American hostages. Crazy dude.
And the 3 Mile Island was where, that big, huge accident happened.
Alan Bach is the student who won a suit against the University of California in 1978 on the grounds that the affirmative action program had kept him out. Well, that's all that we have for you tonight, folks, and we will see you next year. I'm Eloise.
And I'm Lois.
And we are signing out.